Hi team, Miss Vaughn here. Here to talk to you about what you're going to be doing with the sub today. So you should be in your assigned seats according to the seating chart, and you also need to make sure that your phones are in the pockets because we have a lot to get done today. Okay, first thing that you're going to do is that you're going to have the sub or someone who is a nice volunteer is going to pass out this handout that says work to do with the sub on Friday, November 3rd, 2023. The other thing that you need is this handout that says the Paris Review interview. And the last thing that you need is chapter 3. There's extra copies of chapters 1 and 2 if you've been absent, but chapter 3, the Paris Review interview, and then also this handout are the 3 handouts that you need to start class today. Class is going to start with these 2 handouts. So you're going to look through the instructions on the subplans handout that you've been given. And then as you read through the interview, you're going to make some annotations along the way. What are you going to be annotating for? You're going to be looking for the way that Mahfouz talks in the interview. And remember that Naguib Mahfouz is the author of the book. He's going to be talking in the interview about how he feels about women, freedom, and also religion. Okay. Freedom, we've already gotten hints at that in chapter 1 with the way that Saeed has been released from jail and how he's processing and dealing with his freedom. This chapter 2 is going to deal with the role of religion and freedom in it. And then chapter 4 is when we're going to be introduced to Noor, a new character who's going to be the embodiment of some of the ideas that Mahfouz has with women, as he explains here. So you're annotating here for the way that he talks about religion, freedom, and women. And then at the end, you're going to write 3 sentences that are going to state what he thinks or what he believes about each of those. So there's some space here at the bottom. Give me 1 sentence for what he thinks about religion, 1 sentence for what he thinks about the role of women in Egypt, and then 1 sentence of what he feels about freedom in Egypt as well. So I'm going to be checking this at the beginning of class on Tuesday. And then you're going to continue reading chapter 2. In chapter 2, as we saw in class on Tuesday, that the Sheikh, he speaks in these things called aphorisms. They're those wise sayings. We annotated for the first one where he says, you seek the walls and not the heart. So he calls Saeed out for wanting only a place to stay, but not wanting to be a part of the actual religious practice of the place that he's at. And so he says some other ones along the way, and it's really important that you read for the context of when he says it or what he's responding to that Saeed says when you're interpreting what it means here on the handout. At the very end, thinking about all the things that you learned from the interview of what he thinks about religion, you're going to answer a question here of what do you think it is that Naguib Mahfouz is trying to say about religion based on the interaction that Saeed has with the Sheikh. Then you're going to read chapter 3. And chapter 3 is going to be pretty self-explanatory. So there's a lot of description that happens. And sorry, I dropped my papers. There's lots of description that happens. And there's not as much confusing language like there is when the Sheikh speaks. And for context, and I write this context also on your handout on the backside where it says chapter 3. Saeed needs a job. We know that. He also needs a place to stay. So he's going to go to try to track down one of his old friends, Raouf, to get some money and a job. And Raouf is going to have kind of a rude awakening for Saeed. Saeed initially first goes to his place of business, but then he decides not to. That's one of the questions. You need to explain why it is that he decides not to go into Raouf's business. And Saeed tracks him down and goes to his house instead to have a conversation with him there. When he goes to Raouf's house, Raouf, you need to think about how the house is being described. And then you also need to describe how we know that Saeed is having a really difficult time adjusting to life outside of prison based on not only what he tells Raouf, but also how he reacts to the situation that he is in. Background on Raouf. Raouf and Saeed, they used to be friends. So Raouf wrote all of these articles and other publications calling for the revolution. He wanted it to happen. The revolution happened, and then Raouf's job, because he was calling for the revolution, he didn't really need a job anymore. So instead, he ended up making a ton of money by writing these tabloid stories. So essentially like writing gossip columns. And Saeed is going to feel like Rauf like really sold out his values in order to just like sit back and relax and make money. So I want you to think about Rauf as a character. Do we agree with what he does and the way that he treats Saeed? Or do you think that he owes Saeed anything in their interaction that they have together? And then this is just really foundational for what Saeed does in chapter 4, or what he's going to prepare to do in chapter 4. So pay attention to their relationship, because this is the first time that they're going to be meeting, and they're going to be meeting and interacting several times throughout the rest of the book. All right, get this done. I'm going to check everything on Tuesday when you come back into class. So don't turn anything in. And then also, you guys did such a good job of creating the meaning of the text together. So I would suggest for you and your groups, you should go about this in a group way. Work together as a group. And what does that look like, or what does that mean? You should read the questions of what I'm asking you to do, because I put page numbers here as well, and then read to that point in the book, or read to that point in your packet based on the page numbers in the upper right-hand corner, and then stop, pause, respond to the questions, and then read the next question that you're being asked about. Go and read those pages. After you've read those pages, stop, pause, respond to the questions on this handout here. Hope that makes sense. Work together by looking at the questions, pausing, reading, going back to the questions, talking about it to make some sense together. Get this done. So on Tuesday, I'm going to be checking your Paris review. You have 3 sentences on there, one that talks about religion, one that talks about freedom, one that talks about women. Chapter 2 and chapter 3, you're going to have them fully annotated. And then you're also going to be completed with these questions here to show your reading and understanding. Hope you have a good weekend. Be nice to the sub, be nice to each other, sit in your assigned seats. No one should be in that back row of the classroom. And I will see you in class on Tuesday. Bye-bye.